will allow extended reassessment notices to travel back in time. Extended reassessment notices to travel back in time to their original date. Let me pause here. Can any one of the participants throw light on this? What is the meaning of travel back in time to their original date? What is the meaning of original date here? When such notices were to be issued, it is saying the decision of Honorable Supreme Court read with the time extension provided by TOLA will allow extended reassessment notices to travel back in time to their original date when such notices were to be issued. And then new section 149 is to be applied at that time.
What I have understood, Ramesh Bhaiya, for example, I have received a notice in the disputed period, say on 5th of April 2021. So that notice date of 5th of April should travel back, and that notice should be treated as of 31st of March 2021. And therefore, the provisions of original old act will apply to that particular notice.
Yes, yeah, very rightly said, Anupji. That they will travel back to their original date means original limitation date.
Right.
It means to say. So original limitation date say was 31st March 21. So it will travel to that date. And then what it says, then new section 149 is to be applied at that time, that point. So can it be done? Can you travel back to the original date and apply a law which was not there on that date? 149 of the new act was not on that date.
They wanted to have cake also and eat it too. This is something
so this
very
paragraph, this particular paragraph is totally, I think, against the interpretation of the judgment of Supreme Court, against the provisions of the Act. That is my reading of this particular paragraph. Now, paragraph number 6.2 is very, very important again. Paragraph number 6.2, first Roman 1 deals with the notices issued for assessment year 2013-14, 14-15 and 15-16. However, friends, if you read this paragraph, thus luckily or unluckily, CBDT instruction does not anywhere say that notices for these 3 assessment years can be issued. Let me read this para now, which is the bone of contention, I think, between the department and the SSE. It says, fresh notice under section 148 of the Act can be issued in these cases with the approval of specified authority only if the case falls under 149(1)(b as amended by the Finance Act of 2021 and reproduced in paragraph 6.1 above. So therefore, friends, the instruction nowhere says an assessing officer gives a direction to issue the notice for assessment year 13-14, 14-15 and 15-16. By reading this particular instruction, reading this particular para, no one can say that for these 3 years, notices will be issued by the CBDT. This is how I am reading it. If any of you have anything to say in this, let us discuss this. This is my view upon reading of this particular para.
Cases falls under 149(1)(b?
Yes.
It says, only if the case falls under clause B of subsection 1 of the section for 149 as amended by the financial 2021. So which all cases falls under this category for these 3 years?
Yes, you are right, Anupji. Yes, 149(1)(b, only if the case falls as 149(b) is 3 years, more than 3 years, but less than 10 years. These are the cases which fall under 149B. Okay. And here they are not reading the proviso which is there in section 149 of the Income Tax Act. Proviso is also there, which they have reproduced in the immediately preceding para. They have reproduced the proviso. So 149(1)(b), one cannot read in isolation without reading the proviso. That is my reading. They have to read the provisions of section 149(1)(b) as well as the proviso which is appended to that one, section 149(1) of the Act. The first proviso that has to be read while interpreting this.
So proviso का जो importance है, the importance of a proviso to a section. Do we have any judgment supporting that? Ki what, how you read a section along with the proviso? The proviso is as important as the section itself.
Yes,
so
definitely.
There is any judgment आपके पास?
There are a number of decisions right now. I cannot give you a decision off and on. But proviso, the role. What is the role of a proviso? Role of a proviso is to the only thing is, the only limitation is that proviso cannot expand the scope of the section itself. Proviso cannot go beyond the main provision of the section. That is the only way proviso has to be introduced in the provisions. Otherwise, so this is a provision whereby the limitation clause, as was there in the earlier law, has been kept alive by the lawmakers by inserting this first proviso. That what does that proviso says? Provided that no notice under section 148 shall be issued at any time in a case for the relevant assessment year beginning on or before 1st day of April 2021. So if there is any notice which is required to be issued for assessment year 2021-22 and earlier years, if such notice could not have been issued at that time on account of being beyond the time limit specified in 149(1)(b) of the section as they stood immediately before the commencement of Finance Act of 21. So therefore, if the notice could have been issued under the provisions as existed under the earlier law for assessment year 21-22 and earlier years, then only the notice can be issued under the new law. This is how the proviso is to be read. And therefore, when CBDT says that assessment year 2013, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, only if the case falls under 149(1)(b) as amended, then only they can issue the notice. So therefore, it has to be read that 149(1)(b) read with the proviso to that section. You cannot read only the provisions of section 149(1)(b) in isolation without reading the proviso. This is the way I read, friends, this particular paragraph 6.2.1, which is a very important paragraph in this whole instruction, friends. Next is subparagraph 2, which is assessment year 2016-17 and 17-18. It says fresh notice under section 148 can be issued in these cases with the approval of the specified authority under clause A of subsection 1 of 149, since they are within the period of 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. Is it within 3 years from the end of the relevant assessment year? That is the question. How you are reading it as having been within 3 years from the end of the assessment year? Because assessment year 2016-17, 3 years will be ending on 31st March 2020. Assessment year 2017-18, 3 years would end on 31st March 2021. So, plainly speaking, this cannot be said to be within 3 years from the end of the assessment year. So, on a plain and simple reading of this instruction, the instruction is not in accordance with the provisions of the law. However, I'll come to an interpretation which I think department can take. To that I will come little later, friends. Let us now move on. Paragraph number 7. Paragraph number 7, cases where the assessing officer is required to provide the information and material relied upon within 30 days. This is the para heading. And here it says that Honorable Supreme Court has directed that information and material is required to be provided in all cases within 30 days. However, it has also been noticed that notices for assessment notices cannot be issued for assessment year 13-14, 14-15 and 15-16 if the income escaping assessment in that case for that year amounts to or is likely to amount to less than 50 lakh rupees. Hence, in order to reduce the compliance burden on SSC, it is clarified that information and material may not be provided in case of in assessment year 13-14, 14-15 and 15-16 if the income escaping assessment amounts to or likely to amount to less than 50 lakhs. Separate instructions shall be issued regarding procedure for disposing these cases. So can on reading of this particular para, one say that notice for these 3 years will not be issued on the basis of this instruction?
Only if the income is less than 50 lakhs.
No, but is there anything in this particular para which says that notice cannot be issued for these 3 years or will not be issued for these 3 years?
They have written, however, it has also been clarified that notices cannot be issued in a case for AY 13, 14, 14, 15, if the income escaping assessment in that case for that year amounts to or likely to amount to less than 50 lakhs rupees.
And let us read the next line which they have written.
Hence, in order to reduce the compliance burden of SSC, not AO, they have not written the compliance burden of JAO. They have written in order to reduce the compliance burden of SSC, it is clarified that information and material may not be provided in a case for AY 13, 14, 14, 15 and 15, 16. So they are not going to provide you any material.
But at the same time, separate instruction will be issued as to procedure for disposing these cases.
So that is their internal guidelines here, how to dispose of this year's cases which has been opened.
But they could have said that these cases are now closed. These cases should be treated as closed. Nothing can be done.
No, they have said they will issue separate instruction.
So what is the need for a separate instruction? If they agree that notices cannot be issued for these 3 years.
Acha.
They have to make uploading and other things in their system because they have given in the portal also. In the portal of the SEC also, these notices are pending.
So I agree that procedural formalities may have to be done as far as these notices are concerned. So maybe we can see another instruction coming in respect of these 3 years where the amount involved is less than rupees 50 lakhs. This is what we have to read.
Yes, sir.
Is it not? Okay. Now let us come to the most important last para, which is the para number 8. Para number 8 gives the detailed that what is to be done. The para number 8.1 says the procedure required to be followed by JAO in compliance of the order is as under. First para, the extended reassessment notices are deemed to be so-cause notice in accordance with the judgment. Here again, I have objection on the use of the word extended. These extended, they are saying on their own. Supreme Court has nowhere said that we are extending the notice. They are nowhere said. Then it says, next line is very, very important. What it says, therefore all requirement of new law prior to that so-called notice shall be deemed to have been complied with. All requirement of new law prior to the so-called notice shall be deemed to have been complied with. Friends, in my view, under the new law, when a notice is issued under section 148A subclause B of the Act, after doing inquiry or without doing inquiry, if the assessing officer so feels, the first point to be seen by the assessing officer as well as by the high specified authority is whether the notice is capable of being issued or not for that assessment year. Because before issuing a notice under section 148A subclause B, the provisions of section 149 will come into picture at that very time. Can you imagine a situation where a notice under section 148A is issued for a assessment year for which he is not capable of issuing notice under section 148 on that date? Jurisdictional fact. There is a decision of Supreme Court 87 ITR page 539 Raja Textile. Jurisdictional fact must be, and jurisdictional fact is capable of being argued before a court of law under Article 227 of the Constitution of India. Therefore, jurisdiction must exist before you exercise your power to issue notice under section 148A subclause B. You must see whether you are capable of issuing the notice under section 148 for that year or not. If you are not capable of issuing notice under 148, then starting the proceedings by issuing notice under 148A, in my opinion, will be not in accordance with the law. And there, when the CBDT writes that all requirements of the new law prior to the so-called notice shall be deemed to have been complied with, I don't know from where they get it, that they're deemed to have been complied with. That means even 149 shall be deemed to have been complied with. Prior requirement of new law includes 149 also. So this particular paragraph, this is totally wrong in my opinion. Then friends, next is I am not doing 30 days to 2 weeks. They are not material. I am jumping onto the one particular para, which is in view of the observation of the Supreme Court that all defenses of the new law are available to the SSC. If the SSC makes a request by making an application that more time is given, cleverly, I will say in this particular para, cleverly, the instruction does not talk about the main defense which Supreme Court told regarding 149. In this para, though they start that in view of the all defenses of the new law are available to the SSC, they are writing. But then they say if the SSC makes a request by making application that more time be given to him for filing the reply. They have went on to the time for filing the reply. They do not talk about the 149, which is dealing with the limitation aspect. And basically that is the defense which has been talked about by Supreme Court in its decision, to which I'll come. So friends, this is basically the instruction which has been issued, where upon reading of this instruction, it is clear that the department will issue the notices under section 148A, basically the notices which will be deemed under 148A for assessment year 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16. All these years also their notices will be issued if the amount involved is more than rupees 50 lakhs. But not in, if it is below 50 lakhs, they will not issue. Now the question is, what is to be done if the notice, if such notice is issued? That is the that is the group discussion for which we are joined, friends. Before coming to that, because that is the before coming to that, friends, let us analyze the decision of Ashish Agarwal, also Supreme Court, and Allahabad High Court, friends. I will advise all of you to kindly read paragraph number 65 onwards of the Allahabad High Court's decision. And the way I read the decision of Allahabad High Court and the decision of Supreme Court, in my opinion, Supreme Court has agreed totally with whatever reasoning was given by Allahabad High Court. Totally in agreement with Allahabad High Court. That is why, if you read the decision of Supreme Court, it says that we have modified the decision of Allahabad High Court. Modification has been done. It is not that they have quashed the decision. They have nowhere said it. They have, at the last para number 12 of the decision of Supreme Court, the Supreme Court says the impunged common judgment and order passed by Honorable High Court of Allahabad and similar judgments, more particularly the respective judgment and order passed, shall stand modified / substituted to the aforesaid extent only. Therefore, whatever Supreme Court has said in its order, to that extent modification will be done. Otherwise, whatever Allahabad High Court said, that will remain. That has the approval of Supreme Court. That is how I read the decision of Honorable Supreme Court, friends. If any view in this regard is there from the audience, it is welcome, friends. Now, let me first come to the decision of Allahabad High Court, because that is very, very important decision in order to understand not only the instruction, but also the decision of the Supreme Court. It is very important that we must read the Allahabad High Court judgment. Few paragraphs I will like to put forward. Friends, if you see the decision of Allahabad High Court, the notices which were subject matter of challenge were not only related to assessment year 2013-14, they were even related to 2017-18. Because in the first few paragraphs of the decision of Allahabad High Court, the court has given name of all the parties, including the assessment year for which the notices were issued and the date on which the notice was issued. They have given the date of filing of return, the date of filing of the date assessment year, and the date of issue of notice. Why this is important, friends? I will tell you. So therefore, the assessment, Allahabad High Court was dealing with notices which were issued for across the board all the years. And what was the subject matter of challenge before Allahabad High Court? Subject matter of challenge before Allahabad High Court was neither the validity of the Taxation Laws Amendment Act, which was passed in pursuance of the ordinance, neither the validity of that, neither the validity of the ordinances which were notifications which were issued in pursuance of the power which was derived in by virtue of Tola Act. What was in challenge was only explanation to the two notifications. Only the explanation part was the subject matter of challenge, which has been clearly recorded in the Allahabad High Court's decision. What was the explanation? The explanation was basically the power which the Honorable CBDT or the officers took upon themselves by virtue of the explanation. That what did the explanation say? Explanation says for the removal of doubts, it is hereby clarified that for the purpose of issuance of notice under section 148 as per the time limit is specified in 148, as the provisions of 148 as they stood on 31st March 2021 shall apply. So by virtue of explanation to these two notifications, the explanation sought to apply the old law to the notices which were issued. And these two explanations were only subject matter of challenge before the Allahabad High Court. And what Allahabad High Court did was to say that these two explanations were ultra vires. They have not said that the notification, entire notification is ultra vires. They have only dealt with the explanation that these two explanations are ultra vires, and the notices after 1/4/2021 could not have been issued under the old law. Notices which were issued after 1/4/2021 should have been issued under the new law, not under the old law. This is what Allahabad High Court said. This is what Supreme Court has also said. Is it not, friends? Supreme Court has said. Lot of people are asking question that what has Supreme Court done with the notification? Have they said that the notification is invalid? Have they made it ultra vires? But friends, I think there was no need for Supreme Court to say so, because Supreme Court in one single line has said the department was wrong in issuing the notice under section 148 after 1/4/2021 under the new old law. It should have been issued under the new law. That is what Supreme Court has said. That is what Allahabad High Court has also said, friends. Now I am coming to Allahabad High Court's paragraph number 65 of the judgment. Very, very important paragraph, friends. The judgment of Allahabad High Court. It says that on 1/4/21, by virtue of plain and unaccepted effect of section 1 of the Finance Act of 2021, the provisions of section 147 were substituted with a new provision, and in absence of a saving clause to save the pre-existing provisions, the revenue authorities could only initiate reassessment proceedings on or after 1/4/2021 in accordance with the substituted law and not in accordance with the pre-existing law. So what Supreme Court has said, this Allahabad High Court has said very much same thing in para 65 of the judgment of Allahabad High Court, that the notices should have been issued under the new law. Then, friends, another important paragraph number 66 of the judgment. It says equally, it is equally true. And one more thing, important point, friends, before I move on. So the Allahabad High Court has clearly said that the enabling act which was passed in pursuance of the ordinance, originally an ordinance was passed where that limitation was extended, and then this resulted into a act. So therefore they are saying that the enabling act which has been passed, it only deals with limitation. It does not deal with the proceedings. It only deals with the limitation that whether the notices which are issued, they are extended or not extended, and therefore the provisions of the enabling act will apply even to the new law. That is what they have said. Even after 1/4/2021, if need arises, the enabling act can be taken into account for the purpose of determining only the limitation point, not for the issuance of notice after 1/4/2021 under the old law, because old law has gone on 31st March 21. There is no law which can be said to exist on 31st March 2021, friends. After 31st March 2021, it is the new law which will govern the proceedings, whether it is for earlier assessment years or for later assessment years. But the provisions of the new law will prevail, not the old law. That has been clearly said in the decision of Allahabad High Court, friends. Now let me come to the decision of Supreme Court. Now, friends, in the decision of Supreme Court, In paragraph number 4, the Supreme Court has said that the reassessment notices which are issued after 1/4/2021, they are governed by the law which is substituted by the Finance Act of 2021. That has been clearly said. And in the same para, the Supreme Court has given reference of Delhi High Court judgment in Manmohan Kohli that while passing the notices, if the law permits the revenue to take further steps in the matter, they shall be at liberty to do so. So therefore, if under the new law, if the notices can be issued for those years, then Delhi High Court permitted that to be done. That is what has been reiterated by Supreme Court. And even Allahabad High Court has said that. If you read the last paragraph number 80 of the Allahabad High Court, the last paragraph 80 of the Allahabad High Court says, it is left open to the respective assessment authorities to initiate reassessment proceedings in accordance with the provisions of the Act as amended by Finance Act of 2021 after making all compliances as required by law. So therefore, even Allahabad High Court has said the very same thing, that notice under the new law can be issued if these notices which we are quashing, if they can be issued under the new law, you can go ahead and issue. We are not debarring you from doing that. And the same thing has been said by Supreme Court also, friends. Now, as far as Supreme Court's decision is concerned, here one particular thing which when I started with the Allahabad High Court decision, I said that the notices were issued for not only 13, 14, 14, 15, but 17, 18 also. Why did I emphasize on that point, friends? Because if you read the paragraph number 8 of the Supreme Court decision, Supreme Court says that the judgments of several high courts would result in no reassessment proceedings at all, even if the same are permissible under the Finance Act of 2021 and as per the substituted section 147 to 151. What does that mean? That Supreme Court was mindful of the fact that the notices which has been quashed by the high courts, they are notices even for assessment year 17-18. And 17-18 assessment year notice, clearly it can be issued under the new law without any doubt. Though not under the 3-year criteria, but under the 10-year criteria, 17-18 will clearly fall, even assuming 149(1)(b) proviso is applicable. So Supreme Court was mindful that if we quash the entire money, if we quash all the notices and same is held to be correct as has been held by High Court, then it will result in quashing those notices also which can be issued under the new law. And that is why Supreme Court says that the judgment of several high courts would result in no reassessment proceedings at all, even if the same are permissible under the Finance Act 2021 as per the substituted section 147 to 151 of the Act. The revenue cannot be made remediless and the object and purpose of reassessment proceedings cannot be frustrated. It is true that due to a bona fide mistake and in view of subsequent extension of time-wide various notifications, the revenue issued the impulse notices under section 148 after the amendment was enforced on 1/4/2021 under the unamended law. In our view, the same ought not to have been issued under the unamended Act and ought to have been issued under the substituted provisions of section 147 to 151 of the Finance Act of 2021. This is paragraph 8 of the Supreme Court's decision, where they have said that notices should have been issued under the amended law, not under the unamended law. And thereafter, they have said that we are treating these as notices having been issued under section 148A subclause D of the Income Tax Act. Then comes the crucial para, that all defenses which may be available to the SSC under section 149 and or which may be available under Finance Act of 21 and in law, and whatever rights are available to the AO are kept open and shall continue to be available. This is 149 exception, friends. So this is the whole order of Supreme Court, order of Allahabad High Court, and the instruction which has been issued. And friends, after reading all these three documents, what in my opinion results is that the provisions of section 149 has to be seen whenever any notice is issued. Whenever the notice under section 148A, which has been deemed now, one has to see that whether the provisions of 148, whether it meets the test of section 149 or not, whether it can be said to be valid under section 149 of the Act or not. Now 149(1), there is a proviso, friends, which we have just now discussed, that which deals with the limitation period of the old law having been kept under the new law also. Limitation period under the old law was 6 years from the end of the assessment year. That was the maximum period for which the assessment could have been reopened under the old law. So therefore, that has been kept alive even under the new law. So therefore, going by that proviso, if assessment year 21, 22 and earlier year, the notice is issued, then the proviso has to be kept in mind, in my opinion. If it does not meet the limitation period as prescribed in the proviso, then the notice under section 148A, which has been deemed now at the earliest point of time, after the department gives you the information, whatever they have, when you have to file the objection within 2 weeks, one should primarily put forward its objection on the legal point of limitation, that this is my primary, whatever infirmities are there in the instruction, if instruction which has been just now we discussed, the infirmities of the instruction should be pointed out to the department, whether they have cited the instruction or not. Since the instruction is in public domain, this instruction is not beneficial to the SSC. Therefore, this instruction should be challenged as not being valid, is ultra vires, and 149(1) proviso should be taken help if there is any limitation point is there, friends. That is one. Other than that, if the limitation point is not there, suppose 2017-18, if 148A subclause B notice has been issued, where information is given to you, and after information you are supposed to respond to the notice or the information, then the new law has to be followed. We have to give our defense to the information which is given. While that giving that defense, even if the limitation point is not available to in that particular case, but the other points can be taken into account while that information is dealt with. The other point can be, for example, like now the notices under section 148A are coming, where the assessing officer is simply writing that I have the information that you have made bogus purchases of rupees itna. That is one line they are writing. So if information like this is given, I'm not saying necessarily this type of information. The information can be of any other information. If such type of information is given, then that information cannot be the basis for arriving at a belief that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. Even though the concept of reason to believe is not there under the new law, but there must be some link between the information and the formation of the belief that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. You simply cannot write any information and issue the notice under section 148A subclause B and thereafter pass an order and issue the notice under section 148. If it is so done, then of course one can challenge the such type of order under section 148A as well as the notice before the high courts under article 226. We have challenged few notices, though there is a Delhi High Court decision which is not very where the Delhi High Court has not entertained the direct challenge to the notice which was issued under the new law. But I think that is one of a case. It is not that notices which are issued under the new law in all cases are going to be held as valid notice. The concept of live link between the regions recorded in writing and the income escaping assessment, which was held by in Hindustan Liver's case as a sine qua non for issuing the notice. To that extent, it may not be there, but there has to be some link between the information and the reassessment notice which is issued. That is one. Now, another point which the department will try to bring, put forward, friends, is that when we are reading the proviso, which I just now explained you, where 6 years time limit is prescribed, the department is going to argue that by virtue of the tax TOLA, the limitation was extended for the notices which could have been issued. Therefore, when you are reading the limitation as per the proviso to section 149, first proviso to section 149, you have to read the limitation not as it is, as appears from the proviso and a simple reading of the old section 149. You have to read the limitation by taking into account the TOLA as well as the notifications which were issued under the TOLA, whereby the dates for issuance of notice were extended till 30th of June 2021. So therefore, if a notice without taking into account TOLA, say for assessment year 2013-14, would have got barred by limitation on 31st March 2020, 6 years from the end of the assessment year. But by virtue of TOLA and the subsequent notifications, that notice could have been issued till 30th of June 2021 for assessment year 2013-14. So therefore, when the proviso to section 149 is read, you cannot read the proviso in isolation without reading the TOLA Act and the notifications issued there under. That is the argument I think the department is going to take for assessment year 2013-14 and 14-15. That you cannot simply read the provisions on a plain and simple language. Here the questions will arise, friends, that when the TOLA Act was passed, giving certain limitations in the Act, thereafter, section 149 of the income tax new law has been enacted, dealing with the same point, limitation. Then can two limitations run parallel? The lawmakers were mindful of not only the provisions of the Act which were prevailing in the Finance Act, which in the Income Tax Act, which was there in the statute book before amendment by Finance Act 2021, and the Tola Act also, and being mindful of these provisions, the proviso in section 149 of the Act was enacted. So therefore, in such a situation, whether the limitation as per the proviso will be read on a plain and simple meaning, or whether the limitation will have to be read taking into account Tola and the notifications issued subsequently, this is one of the crucial things, friends, which I think has not yet been debated. And when Supreme Court says that all defenses under section 149 as are available to the SSC and the department will be available, I think there is a catch in that defense, because the basic, it appears that Supreme Court was also mindful of these difficulties which may arise, but knowingly or unknowingly, these issues have been left open in the decision of Ashish Agarwal, in my opinion. And therefore, the last word, as far as 2013-14, 14-15, whenever we are approaching the assessment year 2013-14 notice under the in the light of this decision of Supreme Court, we should be ready to answer that the Tola Act and the notification which extended the limitation for issue of the notices under the old law, in the light of these notices having been held to have been issued under 148A, whether that defense can be still available or not. In my opinion, it cannot be. One can, the plain and simple argument is that limitation, when has been prescribed, taking into account all these things, and in the aftermath of Finance Act of 21, that limitation will override the earlier limitation prescribed in 149 as well as the Tola. Those limitations cannot be said to be running parallel to the limitation which is prescribed under section 149 of the new law. That is my view, friends. But this difficulty will be there. And one more thing, the saving clause aspect has been dealt with by Allahabad High Court also extensively. I will just like to point out section 297 of the Income Tax Act. If you read 297 subclause 2 subclause D, 297 2D of the Act, if you see, it deals with when the section 34 of the Income Tax Act was there under the 1922 Act. When the 1961 Act came, when the new provisions of section 147 and 148 were enacted, at that time, friends, this 297 2D dealt with the saving clause in respect of the notices which were issued under section 34 of the Act, 1922 Act. So therefore, there being no saving clause under when the amendment was made by Finance Act of 21, similar to 297 2 subclause D of the Act, I think that that controversy has been set at rest, and the notices have been rightly held to be permissible only under the new law, that is after 1/4/2021, whatever was the law. That is all, friends. Now let us, now I am open for discussion. Any queries, let us discuss, friends. Thank you.
Rameshji.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on this limitation point, where we are arguing that the Tola would apply even on the amended provisions. If we go by that logic also, the proviso states that provided that no notice under section 148 shall be issued at any time, in case for a relevant assessment year before this, if such notice could not have been issued at that time on account of being beyond the time limit under the erstwhile provisions. So erstwhile provisions for assessment year 13-14 provided the time limit to be 30th June 2021 if we apply the TOLA.
Yes.
Even if the notice that was issued is taken to be a notice issued under section 148A and is held to be valid, then also the assessing officer will have to issue the notice under section 148 today, which is much beyond the 30th June 2021 timeline, which was extended by TOLA. So this provision still provides the shield to the assessee, even if TOLA were to be applied on the erstwhile provisions, because the erstwhile provision, if TOLA was applied, the extension time limit was 30th June 2021. But notice under section 148 has not yet been issued. A notice under section 148A has been issued on the assessee. The notice under section 148 is yet to be issued after the conclusion of the proceedings under section 148A.
Yes, I agree.
So even if the TOLA were to be applied, these limitations shall be benefit for the assessee itself.
Here, third proviso will come into picture. Third proviso to section 149, that for the purpose of computing limitation as per this section, the time or extended time allowed to the assessee or the period during which the proceedings under 148A is stayed by an order or injunction of any court shall be excluded. So that period of this period will be excluded while computing the limitation. That is what the department will argue. The third proviso.
Right.
Ashok uncle, you can ask your question. Uncle, you can unmute yourself.
हेलो
Yes, I have argument.
हाँ मेरा सवाल ये है कि सपोज किसी एसएससी को अप्रैल में नोटिस मिला था और उसने अपना लीगल ऑब्जेक्शन जो भी फाइल करना था उस समय कर दिया. अब आफ्टर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट रूलिंग उसको सुओ मोटो कुछ करने का है कि और उसको डिपार्टमेंट से नोटिस का वेट करना चाहिए?
उसको डिपार्टमेंट से वो जो रीजंस जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज टोल्ड विद इन 30 days it will be given. It should, that will be coming in my view, they will send to you within 30 days. That will come. Once you receive that, then you have to do whatever you have to do.
So in case we don't hear anything from department within 30 days, can we safely assume that 148 has been dropped?
It depends, it is for which year. Because if suppose it is for a year where they can issue a because there is no limit to the number of notices which can be issued.
Yeah.
Even if that notice may have become barred, that notice may have become not barred, but for this region they may not have pursued that proceeding. But if they can issue a fresh notice under the new law, then you can get another notice also. Otherwise, otherwise the proceedings can be said to be closed.
हाँ, लेकिन फ्रेश नोटिस तो आज की डेट में अगर देंगे तो फिर आज की डेट में जो भी
आज की डेट का जो लिमिटेशन है that will apply. Yes.
Okay. तो इसका मतलब एसएससी को अभी कोई डिपार्टमेंट को मेल करने का कोई जरूरत नहीं है कि वी
अभी आपको कुछ करने का दरकार नहीं है. You please you sit and see what they do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Your action should start only when you receive some communication from the department in this regard, in pursuance of this instruction and the order of Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, may I ask?
Yes, Ashok.
Yes. What happens, sir, if this 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16 loss return is more, that case of that loss is more than 50 lakhs?
Sir, here 13, 14, 14, 15 and 15, 16, in my opinion, the question of 50 lakhs or above or 50 lakhs or below, I don't think that it arises. Because under the earlier law, there was no concept of 50 lakhs or below or 50 lakhs or above. Under the earlier law, the only point was 1 lakh. If the income escaping assessment is 1 lakh, below 1 lakh or above 1 lakh, 4 years, 6 years. That was the only provision. 6 years limitation period was there. So how this 50 lakh and above is being distinguished from 50 lakh and below in the case of assessment year 2013-14, I am not able to understand this. I will request if anybody in the audience has any view. In my opinion, for 2013-14, whether it is 50 lakh or above or 50 lakh or below, doesn't have any relevance at all in view of the proviso to section 149.
So next comes, what about the other years? What will happen? 16, 17 and 17, 18.
16, 17 and 17, 18.
Yes.
16, 17, sir, 6 years from the end of the assessment year is 2023. So 16, 17 is under the new law. Under the old law, this notice could have been issued if the income chargeable to tax escaping assessment was, say, more than 1 lakh. Assuming that the income chargeable to tax was more than 1 lakh, then the notice could have been issued under the old law as on that date. Okay. Now 16, 17 under the new law, it is more than 3 years.
Yes, sir.
It is not more. It is not less. It is not less than 3 years. It is more than 3 years.
Yes.
So therefore, more than 3 year criteria should be fulfilled in order to assume jurisdiction for assessment year 2016-17.
Same will be with 17, 18 also.
Same, because that also more than 3 years.
So now in case of laws,
here, sir, I would like to point out, if you read the instruction of CBDT, which I just now read, they have said, please read paragraph number 6.2, subclause 2. They have assumed 16, 17 and 17, 18 to be less than 3 years.
yes, sir.
Is it not?
Yes.
So either mathematics, we are weak in mathematics, or they are weak in mathematics. That is one.
In any case,
they are taking the benefit of TOLA as well as the notification, which I just now explained. Either they are reading the limitation after taking into account the extension as done by TOLA, and that they are doing, and then calculating 3 years. But ordinary, yes, sir.
Sir, the CBDT is very expert. They have got very senior people in the CBDT. All CIT level people sit there. So we should think that they are very expert people, and they are knowledgeable person, honorable person. So,
yes, sir.
With that background, I am telling, sir, what will this loss return is not, cases of loss is not represented by any asset, because up to 21, 22, that condition has to be fulfilled, because entries and other things is coming, not coming in picture up to 17, 18 in view of, because Supreme Court has restricted for Finance Act 21 only. They have not gone up to 22.
They have not seen the amendments of 22.
Yes, sir. So then in case of loss return, whatever is the amount up to 17, 18, loss, they cannot say it is represented by any asset.
There is a debate, I think. When you made the loss, unless you have cash, how you can make the loss? Loss means outflow of the cash flow.
No, sir, it can be a loss of valuation. Loss can be for various things, sir. Valuation loss.
So therefore, sir, the loss will have to be seen whether one can argue that loss involves outflow of cash. Outflow of cash means you had the cash, then only outflow took place. Loss was second. First was the cash, then was the loss.
Sir, in other words, it's a reduction of the capital. It's a reduction of the assets of the company.
Yes.
It's a reduction of the.
So if it is say a revaluation of asset, loss on account of revaluation, that does not involve any outflow of cash. But if it is a loss in share market, then obviously outflow of cash is there.
No, sir. So if it is M2M on account of the AS2, if it is on account of the AS2,
it is not a cash outflow. It is only a book entry.
Valuation, sir.
No valuation, sir. It can be on account of this thing also, sir. Or take a scenario when somebody has taken an entry transaction, somebody has carried out an entry transaction.
Yes.
Because they have also covered this entry transactions and this.
No, entry transaction has been covered in Finance Act 22. 22,
correct, sir.
They have made the amendment.
Correct,
but
sir.
21, this
Sir, we can,
book of 21,
sir, we can take the loan for payment of loss in that case.
We can
take the loan. I do not have cash, but I have borrowed fund to make the payment.
So you have borrowed the fund, then you must show from whom you have borrowed the funds. You must be able to show the source of fund basically.
So that is a different
If I
issue.
You cannot say that I have borrowed the funds and made losses, and I have not money. I am not explainable for the borrowals which I have made. That is in my opinion, that will not be sustainable.
Sir, so long this loss is not representing any assets, so I think then it is not fall under this 148.
Yeah. So long as it does not involve any cash outflow.
Or not representing any assets.
No, loss cannot represent any asset at all.
Yes, sir.
Once
So
it is
section
one moment, sir.
about
One moment, sir.
representing loss or asset only.
One moment, sir. Rodia ji, you said that if you repay with the cash, if you make the payment, that is presumed that you had the cash and the assets.
Yes.
Now I'm making the payment, I do not have assets, but I have borrowed the fund and made the payment.
You are supposed to then show from whom you have borrowed. You are supposed to show, sir, in my opinion, you are supposed to show the source of borrowing. One cannot simply say I have borrowed and I have incurred I have made the loss, and I am not supposed to disclose the source from where I have borrowed. That was done in
I'm
cash
not saying I will
transaction.
not disclose.
The source will say it is from bank only. Bank margin I have kept in the shares I have kept in the bank, and from bank I have they have deducted from my margin money.
Then it is okay. Then it is not undisclosed at all. The question
it is not undisclosed. My question is only loss, and the SEC is a genuine SEC, has incurred genuine loss. It is represent from his margin money, they have deducted it.
Then it is not a question. Then it is not a case of undisclosed income at all.
Yes, sir.
No issue. No case for issuing 148 notice at all.
In my case, sources are genuine. There is no question about source.
Then there is nothing to. Then they cannot issue 148 at all. First of all.
Ramesh भैया.
Yes, sir.
रमेश भैया जो लॉसेस की बात अशोक भैया बोल रहे हैं, मैं उसी को एक्सटेंड कर रहा हूँ. A company, NBFC company, and the principal business is trading in stock markets, trading in shares, trading in derivative segments also, and they have bought certain call options, and the call options got automatically expired on the due date. The company had not sold those call options, and now since auto expiry, which in our language we call it सौदा गल जाना, तो जो सौदा गल जाता है उस डेट पे मेरा ये पूरा का पूरा options was converted into a loss. So now how you treat this loss? Is it a escapement of income? Everything is through screen based trading system. You have a contract note, and then come again, sir.
Sir, there is no question of any undisclosed income here, in my opinion.
No. But you got a notice from department stating that your income has escaped assessment and you have incurred this loss, which is under a Falcom project of Government of India. You must be knowing the investigation wing of department, revenue department, has started a pilot project where they call this project as a Falcon project. and they got it. The original information was from SEBI, and SEBI has informed ITD, and ITD has gone for a project where they have unearthed this kind of losses. They call it as a Falcon project. So now tell me, you got your client has got a notice on this account. This is purely based on losses. It is not represented in form of any assets. I'm just extending the question of Ashok ji. So I'm not talking about the transaction genuinity. Transaction is 100% genuine.
Basically, see, sir, here there can be two types of issues, I think. One is a case of, say, F&O transaction, where on the last Thursday of the month, when the transactions get automatically knocked off, if you don't do anything, and you incur losses in that forward contract, that is one type of loss, I think. Second type of loss which we are talking is a loss which is artificially generated loss in order to do some adjustment, where like SEBI is issuing notices, 291,000 cases are there where illiquid stock options, the loss and profits were done, where the transaction was matched against each other, isolated transaction was there. So in a case where the first type of case where the transaction got knocked off automatically on last Thursday, I don't think that there can be a case for any kind of whatever be the project, Falcon project or any project. But if it is a case where the illiquid stock options have been dealt with, or a similar kind of an adjustment has been made, which is apparent from the trading which has been done, from the stocks which have been done. If you do a transaction in, say, Hindustan Lever's case, any transaction you have done, there is not likely to be suspicion. But in a situation where a XYZ company is involved, there all these questions will be relevant. And I think in those cases, it has been my experience that if you go to a court of law, then these kind of transactions are seen susceptibly. And therefore, even though I am not saying that the transaction is not a genuine, even though a transaction may be a genuine transaction, but because of this kind of issues, the notices can be held to be valid. That is how I see this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
सर एक छोटा सा एक्सप्लेन ऐसे कीजिए ना कि अगर नोटिस आती है तो एसएससी को कैसे इसको करना चाहिए, हाउ टू रिस्पॉन्ड टू दिस नोटिस, नंबर वन, एंड किस तरह से एक सबमिशन देना चाहिए, पॉइंटिंग आउट किस किस फैक्ट्स को लेते हुए कि कहाँ का इन्फॉर्मेटिव है, उस हिसाब का। जैसे अभी जो पुरानी नोटिस आई, डिपार्टमेंट व्यू लगे इशू द नोटिस, तो हमको तो उसको ऑब्जेक्शन करना है, तो ऑब्जेक्शन करने में हमको किस हिसाब से रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहिए एक संक्षिप्त में?
आपको you have to raise the objection at the first point when 138A के बाद आपको इंफॉर्मेशन मिलती है।
हाँ,
तो आपको there has to be two main broad issues on which objections to be given, in my opinion. First is the legal point. What are the legal aspects on which you are objecting? Legal aspect will include limitation aspect also. And if there is any other legal violation has been there while giving you the information, which can be any kind of legal violation, say the approval of the principal commissioner was required, but it has been taken from commissioner while giving you the information. Any kind of legal defect in the information which is given has to be taken on the umbrella of legal objections clearly. Then comes the factual objection. Factual objection can be like, I am giving you an example that suppose in the information it is said that this transaction, this person is doing only bogus transaction. We have noticed such kind of information that XYZ is a bogus trader, and therefore you have made transaction with XYZ, therefore your income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. This information is given to you. Now, how you will deal with this objection? So, in my opinion, here the factual aspect has to be highlighted. That look, my transaction with this person is valid, genuine transaction. I am enclosing all the details which I have. You should give maximum details, including the whatever documents you have, correspondence you have in support of the fact that the transaction which you made with that person was a genuine transaction. Now, what happens, friends? And here, like, if a person has done a, say, bogus transaction, suppose I am a name lender. In 106 ITR Lakshmani Mevaldas case, Supreme Court upheld this argument that a person can be a name lender and a genuine lender at the same time. Therefore, if I am a name lender, that does not mean that whatever transactions I have done is name lending. Unless I specifically say that this transaction which I did with X was a name lending. So therefore, same line of defense can be taken while replying on the information. That simply on the basis of this information, you cannot be said to have an information that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. And here, friends, one must always say that you do not have jurisdiction to issue me the notice under section 148A and or 148. Because jurisdiction to issue notice can arise only when there is an income chargeable to tax which has escaped assessment. If there is no income which can be said to have been chargeable to escaped assessment, then you have no jurisdiction to issue the notice. 87 ITR 539 Supreme Court, again I am repeating, jurisdictional fact must be there. These are the way in which the objections have to be given, and objection must be though it must be detailed, but it must be to the point, covering main all the points in a clear-cut manner, including all the details. Whatever maximum details you can give, one should give the details. And thereafter, even if the assessing officer, mostly they will not look into the objections which you give. Under the new law also, I had the occasion, we have filed a writ. It is coming up for hearing on 18th of next week. It is coming up, 148A. I have filed detailed objection. The department has passed an order saying your objections are not tenable. So is it the way you are supposed to dispose of the objections? You are supposed to pass an speaking order. Moreover, when you are giving me the information, 148A notice is a so-cause notice. 148A so-cause, when you are giving, there are a number of cases, friends. Supreme Court has said so-cause must be issued giving full facts. So-cause cannot be a so-cause in a perfunctory manner. For the sake of giving so-cause, you are giving me a so-cause by writing one line. That cannot be said to be the so-cause which is supposed to be given. So-cause must disclose the full facts. Then only it can be said to be a valid so-cause. Otherwise, you can challenge even so-cause itself. It is not a so-cause which is supposed to be given under section 148A of the Act. These are the points, in my opinion, should be taken whenever either you are approaching writ court or not. Even if you are not approaching writ court, you can take these points before the appeal assessing officer as well as before the appellate and the tribunal authorities, I think.
पटोदिया सर, वो सीबीडीटी के सर्कुलर पॉइंट 8.1 में जो आप हाईलाइट करवा रहे थे, therefore all requirements of the new law prior to date of so-called notice has been complied with, जो रेवेन्यू को उन्होंने सीबीडीटी ने बोला है. So can we treat like कि जो इनसाइड पोर्टल में इंफॉर्मेशन होनी चाहिए या बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स होना चाहिए, रिवील होना चाहिए, ये सारी बातें भी डरने में हो गई क्या? नए नोटिस जो आएंगे या नया जो इंफॉर्मेशन मटेरियल आएगा?
No, not at all. This is absolutely illegal. All the requirements of new law prior to that so-called notice shall be deemed to have been complied with. I do not read this. I do not. I don't know from where do they read it. From where do they read it? 8.1 first para. I have seen. I am saying how they are writing that all the requirements of new law prior to that so cause notice shall be deemed to have been complied with. I don't know from where do they read it.
हाँ नहीं मतलब ये जानबूझ के सोची समझी हुई, ये सोची समझी हुई मतलब चाल एक्टिविटी की कि उन्होंने जानबूझ डाला इस चीज को.
Yes, of course. These the infirmities in the instruction which I have pointed out, all these infirmities should be pointed out in every reply, whether or not he has relied on the information, whether he has relied on the instruction or not. In my opinion, since this instruction is in public domain and it has been issued by the department after getting the decision of Ashish Agarwal, one should always write about the instruction, that this instruction is ultra vires, this instruction is not, I am not liable to be governed by this instruction. You cannot issue me, if the notice has been issued in pursuance of this instruction, that notice itself is bad in law. This is the
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था सर कि इसके गार्ब में असेसिंग ऑफिसर बोलेगा नहीं मैं आपको इनसाइट पोर्टल का क्या इन्फॉर्मेशन है कुछ नहीं दूंगा वगैरह वगैरह. कैन असेसिंग ऑफिसर टेक अ प्ली की CBDT, the board has already instructed us कि no compliance to be made prior to this so cause की जो भी prior compliances है सारी has been done, already been done away with.
No.
Can assessing officer take a shelter of this?
You see, if that would have been the position, then Supreme Court in the judgment would not have given 30 days time to the department. Why 30 days time has been given to the department? Let us see the decision of the Supreme Court, that what they have written, that 30 days what they are supposed to give, and what within 2 weeks what you are supposed to do. Let me see that para where the Supreme Court has said so. Just a minute, I'm taking out that particular para of the Supreme Court's order. Paragraph number 10, subclause Roman 1. Supreme Court says the assessing officer shall within 30 days from today provide to the respective assessees information and material relied upon by the revenue, so that assessee can reply to the so cause notices within 2 weeks thereafter. So in this, what does that mean? That the whatever information and material which has been relied upon under since they have deemed it to be the notices under the old law, they obviously have recorded reasons while issuing the notice. Since they assumed the notice to be under the old law, they have recorded reasons in writing for issuance of these notices. So those very reasons will form information in pursuance of this dictate of the Supreme Court, in my opinion. Once you get the reasons recorded in writing or the information, then whatever objections you want to, that has to be done, and the reasons must speak for themselves. Hindustan Lever's case, again I'm saying, reasons are live link between the issuance of notice and the income escaping assessment. Assessing officer simply cannot say that I have received information from Insight portal and that is the basis. This they are doing. Insight portal mein ye bola hai, this person is bogus supplier, therefore you are income escaped assessment. This is what they are writing. This is not permissible in my opinion. This is subject, this is of course the courts are now, courts will deal with this kind of information in the months and years which will come.
जहां पर रमेश जी ऑलरेडी 2013-14 की नोटिसेस भी सर्व की जा चुकी है और उनके साथ में रीजन भी दे दिया जा चुका है, उस केस में भी डिपार्टमेंट को वापस हमको भी नोटिस देनी ही पड़ेगी.
Since this procedure is to be followed by for all the notices, so most probably they will give you the same thing.
Same thing, yes.
अगर वो दूसरा कुछ देते हैं तो अच्छा है, फिर तो आप बोल सकते हैं पहले आपने ये दिया, अभी ये दिया, माने आपने चेंज कर दिया.
Pradeep ji, go ahead with your question.
रमेश सर, मेरा एक तो था सवाल, ये जो 140 डिपार्टमेंट इशू कर रहा है, कुछ जो इलिक्विड ऑप्शन थोड़ा देर पहले आपने इलाबोरेट किया था, कुछ एक ऐसा हुआ है कि एसएससी का टोटल एक फाइनेंशियल ईयर में एफएनओ का लॉस हो रहा है, सपोज करिए 1 करोड़ रुपीस, उसमें से डिपार्टमेंट ने कुछ एक केसेस को, कुछ एक ट्रांजैक्शंस को पर्टिकुलरली आइडेंटिफाई करके बोला है कि ये बोगस ट्रांजैक्शन है सिंस काउंटर पार्टी सेम है, और उस पर्टिकुलर ऑप्शन का ही और ट्रांजैक्शन भी है जिनको वो जेन्युइन माने जस्ट बिकॉज उसका काउंटर पार्टी डिफरेंट है। इस टाइप के केसेस में एसएससी को क्या ग्राउंड लेना चाहिए, क्योंकि एक ही ऑप्शन में वो बोल रहे हैं कि ये ट्रांजैक्शन आपका जेन्युइन है और ये ट्रांजैक्शन आपका अनजेन्युइन है बिकॉज काउंटर पार्टी सेम है।
अगर असेसिंग ऑफिसर खाली इसी ग्राउंड पे बोल रहा है काउंटर पार्टी सेम है, तो दैट कैनॉट बी अ ग्राउंड फॉर माने मेकिंग अ assumption that the transaction is bogus, because even with respect to the same counterparty there can be genuine transactions. SEBI के कई order है जिसमें counterparty was same but the transaction was held to be valid because that counterparty did transaction not only with you but with several other parties also. So therefore one has to take reasoning like that simply because counterparty is same in some of the transactions, that cannot be a basis for assuming that income is these are the bogus transactions. But अगर आप कोर्ट को अप्रोच कर रहे हैं in a situation like this, it will be a difficult task because court will never go into factual aspects. These are the points which one should take while filing the objection and before during the course of assessment. Otherwise it will be difficult to explain these things before the court of law, in my opinion.
भैया, I'll just come in. Can you cite a couple of case laws जहाँ पे मतलब सेबी का ये बोल रहे हैं, बिकॉज सेबी का जितना भी अभी तक ऑर्डर्स आया है, सैट का भी मोस्टली जो ऑर्डर्स आया है, ठीक है, दैट इज स्टिल 5 लाख रुपए वो पेनल्टी लगा ही रहे हैं अपार्ट फ्रॉम
नो, you see सैट का जो ऑर्डर आ रहा है, that has been in my humble submission and with due respect to all, the SAT has not been, SAT order has been passed per inquirium because only Rakhi Trading and Kishore Ajmera judgments have been cited and they have not, the cases have not been distinguished properly. Rakhi Trading ka case, if you read properly, clearly Rakhi Trading case has dealt with a case where there were repeated transactions, voluminous transactions were there. So Rakhi Trading, in my opinion, cannot be applied to a illiquid stock option case because in Rakhi Trading itself, the court has said that isolated transactions agar hai, that must be dealt with on the facts of each case. One cannot apply Rakhi Trading in a blanket manner. And these points have not been argued before SEBI Appellate Tribunal. And that is why SAT has gone by Rakhi Trading and Kishore Ajmera and Good Earth एक case है, Good Earth है, और एक कैलकाटा का एक सरोज स्वाइका का केस है शायद ये. हाँ, so all these cases SAT में भी जाके वो 5 लाख अपील्ड हो जा रहा है. That is the reason.
सैट का कोई ऑर्डर आया है क्या सर, जिसमें सैट ने डायरेक्ट किया सेबी को कि आप पेनाल्टी को कब बहुत ही एक रीजनेबल टाइप का कुछ पेनाल्टी लगाओ, या कोई स्कीम
नहीं, सैट का कई ऑर्डर है जिसमें 5 लाख से 1 लाख किया है सैट ने. हाँ,
नहीं, मैं बोल रहा हूँ आज या कल, आज ही शायद कोई सैट ने ऑर्डर दिया है सेबी को जिसमें उसने डायरेक्ट तो नहीं किया है, उसने रिक्वेस्ट किया कि आप एक स्कीम नया लॉन्च करो, आपकी लास्ट वाली स्कीम जो थी फिजिबल नहीं थी और नई स्कीम लॉन्च करो जहां पर रीजनेबल अमाउंट रहे तो लोग उस पे जा पाए.
तब तो ये गुड न्यूज.
हाँ, मतलब मैं जस्ट आपको शेयर कर रहा हूँ, ये मैंने जजमेंट आया है, ये कंफर्म है. आज ही आया है, कल आया होगा.
ये शुभम सिंघल वाला जजमेंट का बात करेंगे अपन लोग यहाँ.
मतलब मेरे को ये जजमेंट मेरे पास में, मैं डाउनलोड करने की चेष्टा कर रहा हूँ अभी बात करते करते ही. मैं करता हूँ तो शेयर कर दूंगा. मतलब जजमेंट आज ही आया है या कल आया होगा.
ओके सर,
आई थिंक ये गुड फेथ का जजमेंट है दैट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट एंड शुभम सिंघल वाज द एपेलेंट प्रोबब्ली.
ओके, हाँ, एपेलेट ट्राइब्यूनल ने सेबी को रिक्वेस्ट किया कि आप कोई नई स्कीम लाओ जो एसएससी मतलब से एपेलेंट फेवरेबल हो. रमेश भैया, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था कि जो अपने 13, 14, 14, 15 या 15, 16 की जो भी नोटिसेस आएंगी या मटेरियल आएगा, इनवेरिएबली अपने को उसमें लीगल ग्राउंड एंड जुडिशियल को ही चैलेंज करना है या फर्स्ट स्टेज में हम लोग फैक्ट में जाएं? हम लोग क्यों फैक्ट में जाएं ना, फैक्ट तो सेकंड स्टेज के लिए है.
नहीं, बट आपको मल्टीपल स्टेज मिलेगा नहीं ना, आपको जो बोलना है एक ही बार में बोलना है ना, आपको पार्ट पार्ट आप बोलेंगे तो होगा, आपको तो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी कोई बार बार मिलेगा नहीं ना, आपको जो बोलना है एक ही साथ बोलना पड़ेगा।
नहीं, बट 148 कैपिटल ए डी के अगेंस्ट में गुवाहाटी हाईकोर्ट का जजमेंट आज ही आया है, जहां पर गुवाहाटी हाईकोर्ट ने रेवेन्यू को बोला कि भाई आप अपना जो ऑर्डर दोगे रीजनेबल ऑर्डर दोगे और एसएससी के सारे फैक्ट्स सुनने के बाद में दोगे, मतलब कॉन्ट्रारी टू द दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट जजमेंट। दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट का जजमेंट था उसके अगेंस्ट, मतलब उसके दूसरे टाइप ऑफ, दिस इज एसएससी फेवरेबल जजमेंट, वो आज ही प्रोनाउंस हुआ है।
स्पीकिंग ऑर्डर शुड बी पास्ड।
हाँ,
speaking order, yes, that is the intent, because so cause
तो
notice,
मतलब 148 कैपिटल ए डी के अगेंस्ट हम लोग रिट तो फाइल कर ही सकते हैं कलकत्ता हाई कोर्ट में।
yes, of course, because it is not an appealable order under the law also। 148A सब clause D के order के अगेंस्ट में कोई अपील प्रोविजन है नहीं, so court cannot say that there is a alternative remedy।
नहीं, but in the case of Delhi High Court said that you have an alternative remedy available, so why didn't you come to me at this stage?
No,
वो जो 7th मई का जजमेंट जो प्रोनाउंस हुआ था आपने देखा होगा, 7 अप्रैल का, सॉरी,
उसमें क्या है ना, 148 का नोटिस को चैलेंज किया गया था, माने ये पॉइंट जो है ना अल्टरनेटिव रेमेडी वाला पॉइंट को द काउंटर वाज नॉट मेड कि 148A सब क्लॉज डी इज नॉट एन अपीलेबल ऑर्डर, दैट पॉइंट वाज नॉट हाइलाइटेड प्रोबेबली।
ओके, अंडरस्टैंड।
Sanjay Da is sitting very quietly. He's not shared anything as of now. Sir, अगर आप
Sanjay Da,
करना चाहते हैं तो
give some expert comments.
Yes.
Sanjay Da, request you to give some expert comments for all.
Now, what I have understood by reading that Supreme Court order and also after hearing Pransuka and of course Ramesh, that the main issue which comes to the SSCs, that regarding the 13, 14, 14, 15, that the proviso to section 149(1), no importance has been given to that by the CBDT instruction. Though in the instruction they themselves have quoted that section fully. This is also very surprising. I have noted that in the instruction they have quoted the full section where the proviso is given. But when they have given the instruction, ignore that proviso. I think that is the main thing. As Ramesh, you have every case, the assessor who has received the notice or who received it earlier also, he has to see that whether on analyzing the proviso, that notice could have been issued or not. If that is found that they could not have issued, then that should be first point. But I also agree with you, what you have just now told to Anup Sanghai, that you don't get chance many times. So whatever objections you may have, you have to tell it at the first opportunity that you get. But it should always start with whether that notice could at all be issued or not. This is my view only I am taking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
उसके पास मेन गेट में लॉक करने वाला वो चाबी है।
रमेश जी, रिट पिटिशन होगी हाई कोर्ट में, इस सर्कुलर के अगेंस्ट में रिट पिटिशन भी फाइल होनी चाहिए।
ये अगेंस्ट इंस्ट्रक्शन, this instruction in my opinion is going to be challenged as ultra vires।
हाँ, वही तो बोल रहा हूँ मैं।
हाँ, definitely this instruction will be subject matter of challenge।
नहीं ठीक है, छोड़ेगा नहीं अभी लोगों को। अच्छा है।
But one should say that it is ultra vires, but how many SSCs will have that capacity? So in most of the cases, excepting some few ones who can go for the writ court, that we have to deal with in giving our replies to 148A, and we have to fight on that. If by chance some good order comes for others, then that advantage can be taken out of that. But for the time being, if one says that it can be challenged at the court, I don't think that that's a solution to most of the people.
Yes, sir. You are very right, sir.
That cannot be the solution. लेकिन अगर कोई favorable order आता है, then in the appeal stage या assessment के latest stage के अंदर भी this can be taken care of ना.
Pramod,
assessment के पहले कोई order आ जाता सुप्रीम कोर्ट का या कोई भी हाई कोर्ट का, then it can be the beneficial.
Can you expect a favorable order within a very short time? It's also very difficult. But
आ जाएगा.
When I heard Sushil Pransuka telling that he had an information that the CBDT is going to file a revision petition before the Supreme Court, and that thing, I also thought, and I think everybody will think, that the CBDT itself has understood that the Supreme Court decision is not in their favor actually.
Exactly, sir. This decision is replica of Allahabad High Court judgment, I will say. Allahabad High Court, whatever has said, Supreme Court has said same thing.
You have explained it by making the comparison with the Allahabad High Court decision, that how it is the same thing.
Same.
This is a very important word. The Supreme Court has mentioned a High Court order has been modified.
Yes.
Very important thing. It is a modification of that order. It is not dismissal of that order.
Not at all. Yes.
Do we have any more questions on the floor?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think almost everything has been answered in the first half an hour. It probably will not stay, and जितना जल्दी खत्म होएगा उतना better है for everyone. I mean, sooner the better. That is what I would say. And I think अभी SEBI का भी वही है, SAT का भी, because there I think I don't know what problem there is कि they are not listening with an open mind. I'll just, sir, अभी अपने पास time है, if you give me 2 minutes, I'll just explain you one case SEBI का, जहाँ पे one of my clients, उनका केस है, जो ब्रोकर है वो अपना कैपेसिटी में ट्रेड किया है, ठीक है, इट इज नॉट द क्लाइंट्स ट्रेड, ठीक है, वो 4 साल या 5 साल तक पैसा घुमाता रहा, मतलब 2015 में ट्रांजैक्शन किया, 2019 तक अपना ही बुक्स में उसको डेबिट क्रेडिट करता रहा, 2019 में NEFT किया. When we replied to SEBI कि भैया ये गलत है, ये फ्रॉड है, प्रोबेबली आप उसका बुक चेक करो या जो भी आप वहाँ पे चेक करो. They did not hear anything. वो बोलते हैं कि भैया आप आज हमारे पास में क्यों आ रहे हो? We said, सर, जब मेरे पास में नोटिस आया तब मेरे को पता चला कि ऐसा कुछ हुआ है. मेरे पास तो ना पैसा आया ना कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नोट आया 2015 में, तो मैं पहले आपके पास में कैसे आता, ठीक है. They are not ready to hear anything. 5 लाख रुपए का पेनल्टी लगा के भेज दिया. It's really sad.
These penalties, I don't think they will survive in SAT. In a case like this, one can definitely argue that you have to take action against the broker rather.
That is what I have said. That is what we have appealed.
And simultaneously, you should file a case against broker also to prove your genuineness, right, that you were not aware. And you can rope in broker even under the Consumer Protection Act, I think. Okay. At least some action must be taken by you against the broker in any form to show your bona fide that it was all being done without your consent. That will be helpful.
I think with that, Anubhya, any closing comments? Anubhya, Sanjay Da, Mundra ji.
We are discussing this.
Say that Ramesh has explained it in the best way possible. It has enriched all of us. So many thanks to Ramesh again.
Sir, I am honored to receive word of thanks from you, sir.
And sir, just to add that, it's just been a day. ऐसा भी नहीं कि भैया के पास बहुत टाइम था for preparation or anything of that sort. 11 तारीख को ये आया, 12 तारीख को ये फाइनल हुआ, and 13 तारीख को रमेश भैया has been, very detailed and very crisp in what he has shared. So I think kudos to you, भैया. And it shows कि आपका जो इतना साल का meticulous practice है, that is what it shows. So really, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll just 1 second, भैया. Formal एक e-momento है, because we are still on the virtual platform. I'll just share that. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
This is on behalf of ACA Bia. We are glad that you accepted the invitation at such short notice. Thank you to Anup Bhaiya for actually initiating this. Thank you so much, Bhaiya.
Thank you. So with your permission, can I leave now?
Yes, thank you so much, Bhaiya. Thank you. Thank you, Sanjita. Thank you, Anup Bhaiya.
Thank you, sir.
Suraj.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to all the participants who joined today. Thank you.